Well, hey everybody. Thanks so much for having me today. As Cassie mentioned, my name is Karen Wilke. I am the Associate Director of Freshwater for the Nature Conservancy in Iowa. I have been with TNC for almost 13 years, 12 years, mostly leading our Oxbow Restoration program. So I'm happy to share a little bit about that program with you guys today, as well as a few of our other freshwater programs. A little bit of background on the Nature Conservancy. If any of you aren't familiar with us, our mission is to protect the lands and waters upon which all life depends. We are the world's largest nonprofit conservation organization. We have chapters in all 50 states and 80 plus, I think we might be 83 countries now. We are science-based, nonpartisan, and non-confrontational. So historically, you may have heard of us or known us as the ones who buy and own and manage rare landscapes that host, rare plant species or rare animal species to protect those declining populations. So we do still have some preserves in Iowa. That's still really our bread and butter, like the core of what we do. So in Iowa, those areas are circled on this map. In the southeast is Land of the Swamp White Oak. It is one of the most biologically diverse areas of the state. We have a lot of bottomland, oak savannas, wetlands, fens, bogs, just a really cool place. So check it out if you like. We've got about 5,000 acres that we own and manage. And then up in the northwest, we have Broken Kettle Preserve, and that's where we own and manage also about 4,000 or 5,000 acres of remnant. It's the largest tract of remnant, never tilled prairie in the state of Iowa. It's within the Luss Hills. It's beautiful. We have over 200 head of bison helping us manage our preserve. So just another really cool spot to check out if you're ever in that area. The rest of the blobs on this map show some of our other focus areas. So we also do a lot of own some land in the Little Sioux River watershed, which is the dark green highlight. And I have a sneeze on the tip of my nose, so sorry if I just explode in a moment. The yellow outlined areas are where we're focusing some of our regenerative, sustainable agriculture work. And then sort of the, I don't know, tan, yellowish watersheds are areas where we're focusing our freshwater work, and that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. The little map on the your bottom right, is just one example of the many sets of data and resources and tools and expertise that go into prioritization maps like this. At the heart of it, we're trying to restore and protect those areas that are predicted to be resilient in the face of climate change, or areas that can be resilient if we could only restore them back to full function. We're focusing on areas that have the most biodiversity, the most number of sensitive species, like species of greatest conservation need or threatened or endangered, that would benefit from our work. So I know it looks like a majority of the state of Iowa, but it's hard to draw the line sometimes. So these are some of the areas where we would like to focus our work. I won't go into this too much, but you know that we face a lot of challenges in Iowa. We are the most altered landscape in the US, maybe the world, I don't know. We've, drastically changed the landscape, removed all the prairie and most of the wetlands and most of the forest. And we have straightened streams, channelized them, levied them, dammed them. We have artificial drainage under a majority of the land, draining water off faster than it can, or than it should. And then, the implications of all those changes, as well as the implications of climate change, leading to increased flooding, increased droughts, really poor water quality, unsafe for recreation. So we could just go on and on about all of the issues that we're trying to solve in this state, and that's really also at the root of our work, is trying to find practices that can sort of address all of these issues, or at least have multiple benefits. So we'll start with oxbows. And I just want to mention, like, all of the work we do, I'm going to talk about it from Nature Conservancy's perspective, but we, of course, couldn't do any of this work without our partners. There are a lot of amazing active groups out there and people that we would not be able to do this work without. So just shout out to all those people. I'm not going to list them all, but we're a pretty small chapter. There's only 25 of us working across the state, and that's the people who are managing preserves. That's the people who are fundraising. It's we can't get much done without collaborating with the strong partnerships that we have. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what an oxbow is, this is kind of a nice visual to show how oxbows are naturally formed. So you have a river that has a big curve, big meander in it. Over time, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. Oh, I don't have it. Oh, there it is. Can you guys see my cursor? And I can't see you guys.
Yep,
okay, thank you. Thanks. I just have one monitor, so I can't see you guys. So it's like I'm talking to myself here, but I look forward to seeing your lovely faces once this is done. Over time, the river is going to, eat into these outside curves and eventually want to cut through and take the path of least resistance and just completely cut off this meander. And over time, it's going to become a little bit more and more sedimented in, disconnected from the stream. That's a natural process. Oxbows form all the time on every river. In Iowa, a lot of them were man-made oxbows. So maybe the river was straightened in order to farm this area. Maybe this wetland was filled in to try to farm. There was a lot of efforts to drain wetlands, to get water off the landscape as quick as possible, to make the rivers, just straight. And so we have a lot of opportunities for these across Iowa. So we're focusing on those oxbows that are not functioning anymore. They don't look like this one in the bottom right, where they're still holding water. They still connect during floods. We're focusing on ones that look like this top left, that have completely filled in with sediment, are no longer functioning like a wetland anymore. You wouldn't even know that was a wetland, except that we can look at old historical imagery. We can look at, LiDAR and things like that, and can see these old scars on the landscape. So it's ones of these that really need help, and that will really get us the biggest benefit for creating more storage for floodwaters on the landscape, and for capturing tile drainage, both from urban and rural land, or urban and ag landscapes, to treat and filter that water before it gets into the stream. So here's just one example of a wetland we did kind of before after side by side to see what that looks like. We've done, sorry, I'm still getting over a cold. We've done a lot of research and monitoring to measure the benefits that restored oxbows can have. And this research directly led to oxbows being added to the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy, because they were really promising results. So I will get into the results. So some of the benefits we found was hydrologic retention. So these oxbows connect really nicely with the adjacent creek or river during flood times, and they're able to slow and hold that water just like they used to. So we're able to sort of slow down that flood pulse for downstream communities, maybe in a small way minimize the speed and the height of that flood. The numbers are pretty small. I mean, it says one acre captures 0.5% of a flood event for any given watershed. However, you get a bunch of these, restored across the landscape, and that benefit does start to add up. And then we did some research to show for oxbows that don't have tile in them, that are just being fed by floods, how quickly can they remove the nitrates? And it took about 21 days to remove all of the nitrates from that creek water in the oxbow. So they're just naturally cleaning this water as well as holding it and storing it and slowing it. We did do a lot of water quality research for tile-fed oxbows as well, and we have found over years of research, the average is about 62% of the nitrate that's coming in through that tile is able to be removed by the wetland. This number varies greatly depending on how much time that water is given in the wetland. So if we have a big rainfall event and that water can just sit there for a while, it'll remove 100%. But if we keep getting rainfall event after rainfall event and that water is overflowing into the stream, obviously there's not enough time to hold it and remove those nitrates. So it really depends how much storage we've given this wetland to hold, and then what Mother Nature gives us as far as weather events. We're also able to reduce the amount of sedimentation by capturing soil erosion off the landscape. This is not usually my intended purpose of these oxbow restorations, because then it's just going to fill in with dirt again and we're going to have to excavate it out again. But it could be certainly a benefit, and I think some communities are using them sort of as sediment capture areas. So typically I like to pair the oxbow restorations with a nice prairie buffer around the whole wetland and talk to the farmer adjacent about conservation efforts that they can be doing in the fields to help protect that wetland and make it last as long as we can. Excuse me. Wildlife benefits. We, don't have a whole lot of places for wildlife in Iowa. So these little nuggets are really rich habitat for wildlife across Iowa. So we have found thousands of fish in just a little quarter acre. You'd be amazed. These tiny little oxbows, it's like a tenth of an acre, and you've got thousands of fish in this little wetland. We have found 57 species of fish across Iowa benefiting from our oxbows, including the federally endangered Topeka shiner, which is why we started this back in the day. This fish requires this type of offstream, slow-moving habitat to get away from predatory fish and be able to complete their life cycle. But once we found all these other benefits, now, we can take a more tailored approach to maximize all those other benefits as well as providing habitat for this fish. We did some bird monitoring, both snapshots throughout the year. So just like literally going and listening for 15 minutes to hear what birds you hear. And that was done by the Audubon. And then we had these really cool automated sensors that we would strap in a tree, and it would come on at sunrise and sunset for an hour, and it would translate the pitch and frequency of the noises that it heard into what bird species that was. And so that was really cool and gave us really rich data to show 81 different species of birds using our restored oxbows. There was like at least nine of those birds would not have been at that site had we not created this water feature. And I think there was like 5 or 6 of them that were like notable species that were kind of rare to Iowa. So anyways, I'm not a biologist, but it's really cool to see as soon as you bring water back to the landscape, the wildlife just find it right away. They're just drawn to it. They need it. They're craving it. And here's some fun pictures of some of the wildlife that we have found, including a little grandchild. I already kind of talked about the Topeka Shiner. It's like I said, how we started this work. Fish and Wildlife created a recovery plan for this species, and Oxbow Restorations is like the number one thing we could be doing to help this species. And you can see the historic range in the dotted blue and the current range in the orange. So we just have a few little watersheds in Iowa where we can be helping the species through restored oxbows. So that's historically where I have focused my efforts and work to help the species, and because there was just a lot of funding for recovery of that species, so we were able to sort of target our efforts. We're taking this practice, the lessons that we've learned from the Boone River watershed and the North Raccoon, and taking it statewide and trying to replicate those benefits for all the other species across the state, all the other water quality and flooding issues that we have. This really is a practice that fits well within the Iowa landscape. We don't have to take farmland out of production. We don't have to convince farmers to change the way they manage their land. These are typically marginal lands along the creek that aren't really being used for anything else. Maybe pasture, but it fits well in a pasture environment. We can restore them there as well. So, and they're fairly cheap. They're maybe $20,000 per acre oxbow, and they should last. We've got ones that we've restored over 25 years ago, and they're still performing great. So it's not like a bioreactor or some of these other practices that we have to keep maintaining or refreshing. It should be something that if we do it right, they will just be able to do their thing on the landscape forever. Our work has been so successful with Oxbow Restorations in Iowa that we found Topeka Shiner returning to watersheds, sub-watersheds of the Boone, that they had not been seen in over 34 years. So it was kind of a if you build it, they will come scenario. We had restored a bunch of oxbows throughout this tributary of the Boone River. We had not seen Topeka Shiner, like I said, for 34 years and 36 years, excuse me. And eventually they just came back, and now they're flourishing in that little sub-watershed. So, that's part of the recovery of the species, is to allow them to have habitat throughout the whole Boone River watershed and all the little sub-watersheds, so that if something happens in one tributary, there's a manure spill or something, and it wipes out the whole population. Well, that's okay, because there's a good population down here that can repopulate, And so just making sure we've got these habitats throughout the whole system to help the success of the species. It's proving to be a good, simple thing that's actually helping the species so much that the Fish and Wildlife Service has recommended for an improved status of the Topeka Shiner, and they're recommending to downgrade it from endangered to threatened. So downgrading being a good thing. So one step closer to this fish coming off of the threatened and endangered species list. As I mentioned, we're trying to take what we've learned in the Boone and share it. There's a lot of funding across the state, both through like NRCS offices and EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentive Program, and state funding. Now that this has been added to the nutrient reduction strategy, there's a lot of funding through the Water Quality Initiative, through the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship. And then there's lots of private organizations such as myself and Iowa Soybean Association, Ducks Unlimited, that are interested in this practice and that have funding for it. And so a gap that we found was that there's just not enough of us to be doing as many restorations as we can. The demand is there, the funding is there. So we hosted some trainings. We created this Oxbow Restoration Toolkit, which is a step-by-step guide for how to restore oxbows, so that conservation professionals across Iowa and beyond can learn how to do this themselves, and we can get more of these across the landscape more quickly. This toolkit is being utilized by many other states now. I actually just had somebody from Thailand reach out to see if they can translate it to Thai. So this is having global implications, which is really cool, and just shows that this is like just a simple practice that can unite us all, something we can all get behind, and really have a big impact on the landscape. So that's Oxbows. Love them. They're awesome. But we're doing other really cool stuff that I'm not sure if you guys know about. So I just wanted to share some of the other cool stuff that we're doing at the Nature Conservancy in Iowa. So if you've never heard of the Sustainable Rivers program, it is was founded by the Nature Conservancy in partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And the idea is to manage the flows coming out of all of our Corps of Engineer dams for environmental benefits. So, the main purpose that these dams were installed is for flood management. But that's really only like 25% maybe of the year that we have to manage it for floods. And the rest of the year, we have a little wiggle room to play with the elevation of that pool behind the dam. And we can have some really incredible environmental benefits if we do that. So, for instance, in the spring, we can simulate a spring flood pulse out of the dam. Normally, it's just this consistent flow, right, coming out of the dam. Well, if we release just a little bit extra and simulate a spring pulse, flood pulse, it triggers spawning cues for fish in that downstream portion. And now they're able to, have their babies. And yeah, same thing with the pool up above. If we can hold back a little bit extra water when waterfowl are migrating through, we can have really great benefits. Or maybe if there's too much water, can we release that slowly so that we're not having negative impacts on the mussel populations downstream? So there's all these like really minor little tweaks that you wouldn't notice it that we're doing it, but the wildlife population notices it for sure, and we're having really incredible benefits because of it. The other big thing out of this is the water quality benefits that we're able to have. So same thing, if we can hold the water behind that dam, especially during times when we have particularly high nitrate flows coming off of our landscape, which I think is like kind of spring, summer time, like early summertime, we are getting really awesome nitrate removal benefits from these dams. So, the water sort of backs up into some of these delta areas and not only creates really great habitat, but just being able to hold that water so that the plants, the soils can naturally denitrify the water. It's a really big impact that we can have. So in Iowa, we are able to impact over 300 miles with improved and more natural flows through this program. River miles, sorry, I should say, because we've got the 3 dams, we've got Corville Lake, Saylorville, and Red Rock. And we're also having conversations with Lake Rathbun to see if we can get them in the program as well. Well, I already talked about all that, so I'm not going to make you guys read that, but there it is if you want it. And here's a cool map. So this is a nationwide effort. So you can see Iowa is just rocking and rolling with our rivers. But we are trying to get more and more rivers added across the U.S. And honestly, a lot of these states are looking to Iowa and our successes because we've been at it for quite a long time. I think the Des Moines River was enrolled in 2015. So we've been, figuring this out and doing a lot of research through Iowa State and other research institutions on the benefits of this program. I highly recommend checking out our website. It's just a really cool program. And then we're doing other, I would say, in-stream projects. One of them being looking at perched culverts. So the one on the left is a culvert under a road, and you can tell the river does not quite line up. It's created a little waterfall. And obviously fish and aquatic species cannot pass through this. They cannot get upstream, and so now they're stranded. So making alterations like having this bottomless culvert to the right, or like an oversized and buried culvert, so that you have natural substrate going through the culvert, and it minimizes that erosion that can happen and allows aquatic passage year round. So kind of a simple thing that we can be doing anytime culverts need to be upgraded anyways. Can we make this simple change to prevent it actually reduces maintenance into the future, so it's to the benefit of counties and cities to do this, and it's a great benefit to wildlife, of course. And then there's other in-stream projects that we're working on too. Iowa has a ton of, as you guys know, a ton of dams, lots of low-head dams in particular. There's over 200 throughout the state that are in need of removal and not really there for a functional purpose anymore. They just were installed, back when we had the mills and stuff, and now they're in disarray. They're a safety hazard to recreationalists, and an obvious barrier to aquatic passage. So we're trying to work with the DNR and the Corps of Engineers to help support and fund more dam removals through willing cities and landowners. So that's another just sort of big project that we've been trying to ramp up. And I guess that's it. I will love to take questions. Here's my email, phone number, contact info, if you guys want to follow up afterwards, if anybody has questions. But again, I really appreciate you having me today and allowing me to share a little bit more about what the Nature Conservancy has been up to.
Great. Thanks, Karen. I'm glad you shared a couple of those other programs too that are probably lesser known.
Yes.
All right. If you have questions, I don't see any yet, but we will wait a minute or so to see if anyone has questions. You can type them in the chat. This is a small enough group that if you want to unmute yourself, you can too, but just remember that you're being recorded. In the meantime, if anyone has ideas for future Lunch and Learns, you can always email me because I will keep these monthly Lunch and Learns going as long as I have topics that people want to know about. Or if you have a good idea for a speaker, I always want to know who I can reach out to give expert advice on topics that we don't normally talk about at the WMA meetings. Also, our next one is March 30th. Yes. It is going to be Central Iowa Waterworks talking about who they are and what they do. And an email about that will be going out very shortly. If you're not on my email list to learn about the Lunch and Learns or get our monthly newsletters, just let me know and I can add you to that list. All right, we do have one question. I know that the Nature Center has supported urban oxbow restorations in the past, maybe not recently, but any future interest in supporting additional urban projects?
Yes, definitely. We've actually been working with Amy Bauska to include some of the urban WQI projects into a future grant proposal. So it definitely aligns really well with our priorities, and we would love to help out more in the future. And yeah, I worked a lot with John Swanson back when I started and helped him get up and started with his Oxbow program way back in the day. And I think we helped fundraise for a lot of those initial projects as well. We would love to get back up to that scale where we can be fundraising a little bit more and providing expertise to increase some urban opportunities. Definitely.
All right. Could you please expand on the benefits of oxbow restoration with respect to stream size?
Do you mean like if we restore oxbows on bigger streams versus smaller streams?
Evo, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to clarify or type in the chat.
Or the benefits
Sorry.
of
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
this.
was I was
Yeah, go
trying to
ahead.
unmute. I was fine. Yes, basically, yeah. Like, is it better to do the stream? Is the higher priority in larger rivers like the Des Moines River, or are we also beneficial in smaller rivers like or medium-sized rivers like 4 Mile Creek or others? I mean, have you
Mm.
guys noticed any benefit? And I mean, all can benefit, but
Hmm.
especially like if you go towards Topeka Shine or some of those, are you get more bang for the buck when you're on the larger streams?
Mm. Yeah, really good question. It depends on the benefits that you're or the goals of the restoration. So actually for Topeka Shiner, we have to keep them smaller than half of an acre. And that helps keep bigger predatory fish out. It's not as appealing to them. And then it's a better habitat for some of those small, Topeka Shiners and minnows. If you're looking at water quality, flood storage benefits, then yeah, doing some of those bigger ones, you're going to get bigger bang for your buck. So it sort of depends, like which species are you targeting? What are the benefits you're targeting? I just think more across the entire landscape is beneficial. The more water we can store and more habitat we can have on the landscape, the better. But it will really depend, yeah, on your goals, I guess. Good question.
All right, any other questions? All right. Seeing none, I will thank Karen again for being our speaker for this Lunch and Learn. Very exciting to hear about those types of practices that hopefully will be utilized even more in the future. And thanks everyone for tuning in, and stay tuned for an email on the next Lunch and Learn. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.